Good morning and a very warm welcome to Ask the Expert. Ask the Expert is an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses just like you. If you have any questions, then ask them in the comments of the live feed. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts just like myself are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with it, and I'll reveal all the results at the end. Okay, so who am I? Well, my name is Aaron Patrick, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you again. I'm a chartered accountant and also a QuickBooks certified trainer with a fancy new logo. So if you don't be afraid to ask any QuickBooks related questions, because I absolutely love those questions. I also own a state-of-the-art accounting firm called Boffix, which uses the best of cloud technology available to help small businesses get the crucial real-time information they need at their fingertips. If you require accounting advice, payroll, bookkeeping services, and even QuickBooks online training, then please get in touch. We don't want small businesses just to survive, but to thrive. I also have dedicated QuickBooks YouTube channel called Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks Chap. So if you have any need for any QuickBooks news, advice, or you want tips and tricks, then please do go over and give the channel a follow. Okay, enough about me, and let's focus on today's session. As always, this session is all about you and your burning questions. If you have a question, then please use any of the social channels mentioned to get in touch. So while we wait for the first of the questions to arrive, let's have a bit of a talk about a big, important topic. And that topic today is making tax digital, or MTD for short. Now, making tax digital, MTD, is a topic that's going to be a recurring theme through many medium at the moment, but it is important for us to kind of understand at what state we are at the moment. So I've got three things I wanted to cover today. I want to talk about what we know about MTD at the moment, and especially MTD ITSA, so making tax digital for income self-assessment, and what we expect or what we have to do. So we've had a little kind of sneak peek of what MTDs look like. We're going to talk about that. And then what we still don't know. So what are those questions that are going on? So what do we know so far? Well, the big thing that we know is that the tax returns that we all know and maybe love, maybe not love, is going to be a thing of the past. Now, if you think about currently how our tax return system, so I'm talking about our self-assessment, our personal tax returns at this point in time, then you know that the tax return system is relatively straightforward. We just have one date to worry about, which is the 31st of January, which is the deadline to get your tax return in. So quick PSA there, if you haven't got your tax return in by now, please do think about getting it in there before the 31st of January. But regardless, we know now that our tax return system is that we need to file that tax return, and that's one tax return by the 31st of January. And basically, then we have another tax year and another 31st of January, another tax year and another 31st of January, and the system keeps repeating itself. Now, the problem we've got is that MTD for ITSA, or making tax digital for income tax self-assessment, which is due to be coming in the next couple of years, is going to completely change that cycle. So instead of having one tax return to file in a given tax year, you will have 5 tax returns, or at least 5 tax submissions in a given tax period. And the idea is they want to move away from having that one annual submission to having a quarterly submission. So that's where 4 of those 5 come from. And then a 5th and final annual compliance, annual return that's going to kind of incorporate everything there. So the way in which we do tax returns is going to be radically changing. And not only do we have to submit more, but we're going to have to use software to do it. So let's have a little bit more of a deep dive into what's happened so far, a little timeline, if you will. Well, making tax digital as it stands has already started. Back in April 2017, there was a private pilot that began, which had voluntary people trying to get their head around how this making tax digital malark was going to come along. And in April 2019, so 2 years after that, making tax Digital for VAT was mandated. And if you are VAT registered, you know all about how we went from, again, a more kind of straightforward, simplified way of filing our VAT returns to a more making tax digital compliant, where the idea was that if you were above that VAT threshold, it was mandatory for you to file through compatible software. Then we went to April 2021, where HMRC, so just this April that's just gone by, when HMRC was no longer accepting the old way of VAT submission. So the fact that you could file via software, but in a non-MTD compliant method. That meant that MTD VAT returns must be submitted if you're going to use a software via the MTD connection. April 2022, so next April's our next big milestone. And that means that VAT registered businesses, so all VAT, regardless of what your turnover is, will have to be making tax digital compliant. Currently, as we stand now, if you're below the turnover, you can still file via the HMRC portal. But from April 22, it's going to be for everybody. So that's our first big milestone coming up. Our next big milestone is April 2024, and that's where the big one comes into play. And that's where making tax digital for income tax self-assessment, so making tax digital MTD for ITSA, will be introduced. Now, we have been given a year's delay to this, and I do recommend that everyone utilizes that year's delay to get yourself ready and waiting for how this is going to be. But effectively, what it means from April 2024, every self-employed business, so if you do a self-assessment for your business, or landlord, so anyone who has rental income above the £10,000 limit, will have to follow the rules for MTD, meaning you're going to have to file quarterly using software and having to comply by the new MTD rules from the 6th of April 2024. Next, other two timelines, just so you're aware, it's April 2025 will be partnerships, and then 2025 onwards, MTD for corporation, so making tax digital for corporation tax, is expected to be the next phase. But we don't think it's going to be there till around about April 2026, but that's all speculation at this point. So just to clarify, who will be affected by making tax digital for income tax? Well, making tax digital for income tax will affect sole traders, so anyone who is filing currently their business taxes via their self-assessment, by their income tax return. If you have a 31st of January deadline, chances are you're going to be hit by the making tax digital changes. So that includes freelancers, contractors, agency workers, anyone who has taken that income that's coming in that's not tax at source. You're going to be affected by MTD for ITSA. And then the other big group is going to be landlords. So basically, if you declare your rental earnings, which you should be doing through self-assessment, then if your rental earnings are above £10,000, there is a very, very, very strong chance that you're going to be subject to making tax digital from April 2024. So how is this going to kind of come into play then? So you'll need to submit your business figures using software. So that bit we know we have to use software to get the MTD thing in. Obviously, if you are QuickBooks and using QuickBooks, you're already going to be covered. So that's one good point for you. The tax updates are supposed to be in real time. So that's supposed to be helping businesses going forward. There is a possibility there'll be a penalty if you fail to comply for MTD. So please do keep an eye on it. Please do keep up to date with what's going on with MTD. And the whole point of MTD is it's for digital records. So it's supposed to be not only that real-time element of it, but also the ability for it to be digital, so that when submission, it gives HMRC that chance to be able to go through it and be able to understand it in more of a digital format. What we expect, what we have to do, well, we did get to see a first look at MTD for ITSA during the Get Connected from QuickBooks last month, and it was a great insight. So if you haven't already, go back and watch the on-demand Get Connected QuickBooks event, because it was a very, very good event, very worthwhile going to. Or I did a video on my channel, Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks Chap, that really went through it in a bit more detail, showing you on screen, showing you what to expect. And I think that's going to be the best way for most people to get a grip to what to understand about MTD. Once you start seeing the screens that are going to be submitted, you're going to have a much more better understanding of what's to go. But what did we learn from that first look? Well, as you'd expect from QuickBooks, the interface looks really, really slick and intuitive. So don't feel alarmed about the extra compliance or anything else, it feels like as long as you kind of got those controls in place, that from an interface point of view, we've got it all covered. It's shown in the tax section of QuickBooks Online is where it's currently shown in the beta area. So at the moment, if you've gone there for the VAT part of things or from CIS, then you'll notice there'll be an extra one for Making Tax Digital. Updates are to be sent at any time. So if you do make an adjustment to a previous period, then you do have the opportunity to make updates to it. So it's not that you're going to send a quarter in and that's it. That's going to be in stone. If you send a quarter in and then find adjustments later down the line, it seems like that's going to be quite a nice, fluid and easy to do control system. End of year that you do have to submit. Remember, you have 4 to submit in a quarter, and then that final end of year one. But you'll be barred from submitting that if you haven't updated those previous ones. So it seems like it's going to be really, really handy for keeping everything updated. Mapping of kind of where it needs to be going to HMRC and what box and all that sort of stuff is all going to be handled automatically by QuickBooks. So that's going to be wonderful to see. And it seems like it's going to come through and send that information. The idea as well is the summaries that are going to be sent over will also give an opportunity for QuickBooks to give you an estimate of what your tax position is going to be. And that's going to be one of the main benefits of Making Tax Digital, is you're going to know from a cash flow point of view what those Making Tax Digital, what those tax elements are. So hopefully you're going to have a much more feeling of what your personal tax situation is going to be. And don't forget the end of accounting period is that final declaration, and that's where we're going to be putting all those different income streams together to give you your final tax bill at the end of it. So what we still don't know, so that's kind of going through what's to expect, what we know so far, everything that we already up to the standard, and then what about what we don't know? Well, what we don't know is basically how we're going to deal with the different splits. So one thing to be mindful of is that Making Tax Digital is going to be mandatory for each individual income stream. So for example, if you have self-employed income, say you're a freelancer, for example, and you have rental property, then that's not five submissions you're going to make per year. That's 10, because individually you're going to have to submit those going forward. And I think that's going to be the key questions as to how finite those adjustments or those different income streams are going to be. Is it that every different rental property, for example, will have to be filed individually? Or is it the fact that we're going to have different income streams from your self-employed that needs to be done? Those are questions we still need to get clarified on. And also, just from a kind of practicality point of view, especially using software like QuickBooks, is how are we going to deal with things like fixed assets, capital allowances, and be able to bring them into the pot as well? So there are more questions that need to be asked, just so we can get a really smooth transition from our traditional submitting of our tax return to our Making Tax Digital one. But the best thing for you to do is keep yourself hooked to Ask the Expert. We're going to be making sure that we're dropping constant reminders about MTD, letting you guys know if we have anything new that's come on the horizon and keeping you up to date. So Ask the Expert is going to be a perfect place for you to understand exactly what's going on with MTD, and also keep an eye out for the social channels of QuickBooks and Intuit themselves, because they're doing a whole campaign about Making Tax Digital to give you the awareness and make sure that you've got everything you need to get some done. And don't forget my videos as well, but we'll make sure you get yourself covered. So that's it. That's all I've got from Making Tax Digital today. But now we're going to go back to the important part of this session, which is all about you and your burning questions. So while I've been talking about MTD, you've been sending in some fantastic questions I can see here. So please, though, if you do have any questions, don't forget to put them into the social channels. Get them over to us. This session is all about you, and let's get your questions answered. So Richard on Facebook Messenger was the first one to get a question in, and says the following: I'm thinking about taking out a loan so I can make my first business hire. What's your advice on this? I can't manage my current workload, but also need to onboard more clients before I can pay for an employee from the business. That is a great question that's coming in here from Richard. And especially at this moment in time where we're starting to see companies recovering from what's happened in COVID, or what's also happening is because we've had a lot of new companies starting because of COVID, because of people who have been taking out redundancy payments and things like that, then we have the opportunity, or we've been seeing more than ever, a lot more fresh-faced businesses who are having to make decisions for the very first time. Now, when it comes to bringing on your first hire, that is more than likely going to be one of your most expensive outgoings you will ever incur. And it's something you really have to look into in a long form sort of way. Now, for me, every time that one of my clients approaches me about taking on a brand new hire, the first thing we look at is their cash flow. And not just their cash flow, what's happening now, but we really need to be critical of their cash flow going forward. It's really important that we make sure that we have the cash flow and we got it correct, so that we can make sure that going forward, we've got that income and that profit to sustain us bringing on that big expense that's going to come through. Now, in your particular question here, you're talking about taking on more financial burden to be able to give you that flexibility and that opportunity to take on a new employee. And basically, you've just got to be really, really mindful of those cash flow forecasts going forward. You've got to be very, very strict on yourself. If you do take on this extra financial burden of taking out this loan, which at this moment in time, there are some really competitive loans out there to encourage small businesses to get out there and recover and give the opportunity for small businesses to start actually recovering during this time. So you will find that you can find some really competitive rates, and it would actually be quite a cost-effective time to be taking out a business loan, or maybe even thinking about grants as well. There are some grants available for small business at the moment to, again, encourage recovery. So you may find that there's an opportunity there to bring on your first employee. And also, but basically, you've got to really start considering all your options there. Look at all of the costs associated with this employee. So you've got your loan cost if you do take out a loan. You've got the actual cost of bringing that employee in. You've got training costs. You've got all those costs together. Put them all down on a piece of paper and start mapping out using QuickBooks Online. Use their cash flow forecasting tool to start thinking about how that's going to affect your cash flow. Ideally, that new employee should be able to be bringing in new revenue, either by taking over the admin stuff that you're doing and giving you the opportunity to go out there and get new revenue, where you need to be able to convince yourself that bringing on that employee is overall going to increase your revenue, which will then give you more profits to be able to make due the payments that are going to be needed going forward. Now, as long as you've got all that in play and you're looking through that cash flow forecast and it's coming through positive, then at that point, you should have the confidence to go out there and make a hire. And if taking out a loan is your only option, then use the competitiveness at the market at the moment to try and find the best solutions. But if you can be confident in those cash flow forecasts going forward, then you're going to be okay. My final tip on cash flow forecasts as well is don't just put that cash flow forecast to bed once you've done it. Keep reviewing it on a monthly, weekly, bi-weekly basis. Keep looking at it. Use budgeting tools within QuickBooks as well. Compare your cash flow against your budgeting, making sure that you are making those strides that you said you were going to. So if it was the fact that you wanted to increase your revenue by 25% to make this hire worthwhile and make it work for you, then make sure you are hitting those targets and going forward. Basically, with QuickBooks Online, you have all the tools you need to make those right decisions. That's why we choose QuickBooks Online for the majority of our clients out there. That's what gives us confidence to be able to talk to our clients and help them along. So keep that information, keep real-time information going. Use the tools in QuickBooks Online to make those important business decisions. My final tip as well is start looking as well, maybe not quite at a full-time employee, but maybe start looking at the possibility of the Kickstart scheme. You've still got a bit of time available to kind of jump on that if you want to. But remember that Kickstart scheme was the ability to be able to get an employee to come into the business on 25 hours, a national minimum wage, and get the opportunity then for you to be able to take on a hire that's actually currently paid for by the government. So have a look and see if that's going to be a worthwhile scenario for you. The deadline's really tight on that though, so you will have to make a decision on that and look into that straight away. Good luck with that, Richard. Do contact me on my channels if you need any more help on that at all. Abraham from Instagram DM asked the following. I already use QuickBooks regularly and work closely with my accountant. Will I need to do anything differently for making tax digital? What a great question. Unfortunately, yes, you will do. So, yes, you work well. You're working with your accountant at the moment, and that's fantastic. But really, from a requirement point of view, unless you're VAT registered as well, you don't really need to talk to your accountant more than once a year in terms of for compliance sake. Now, hopefully, you've got an accountant who's a little bit more proactive, and you do have that, constant communication, helping you raise your business and helping your business survive, not just survive, but thrive. But at the end of the day, from a compliance point of view, at this point in time, you only have one submission that needs to be made. In Making Tax Digital times from April 2025, you're going to have to think about much more, April 2024, I should say, you're going to have to think a lot more about the impact of what's going to do in terms of having to make those quarterly submissions. So again, you're going to have that two-way conversation much more frequently. You're going to have some sort of system in place, or your accountant's going to have a system in place to help you make those submissions. You're going to make a decision if you're going to submit them or if your accountant's going to submit them. Or is your accountant going to check them before you submit them? Those sort of solutions, those sort of products are going to have to be released by your accountant so you can make a decision on what's going to be right for your business. But if your accountant is submitting on your behalf, you're going to have to approve those submissions. You're going to have to provide that data for your accountant. There's going to have to be a much more of a constant supply of data so that you've got a chance for you to be able to stay compliant. So yeah, unfortunately, there is going to be a lot of change going forward. And I think from an accountant's point of view, we're really, really mindful of this, and we're starting to make those changes now. We're starting to try and find ways in which we can work with our clients closer and better. And I also know from looking at some of the product announcements that have been made at QuickBooks Connect and also USA QuickBooks as well, that there are some really good announcements and really good opportunities there. That means that the product of QuickBooks Online is only going to get better for us accountants working with our clients. So we should find that there's going to be a lot better ways in which we can request information, that we can find data for you, and that we can keep ourselves compliant going forward. So the future is bright in terms of the software helping us, but the future is also very, very murky in terms of the amount of extra compliance needed and therefore extra communication needed between a client and an accountant. So just be prepared for changes, basically. April 2025 isn't that far away. And again, we've had that year's grace, and we've had a year's worth of delay, but most of the accountants I'm talking to and fellow peers are going to be using that year as almost a trial run. So trying to get ourselves into play, trying to get ourselves ready for Making Tax Digital in the best possible way by utilizing that year, trying to have data ready to be submitted on a quarterly basis, even though we don't need to, but so we can start bedding in our systems, bedding in our processes, and giving us an opportunity to make sure that from April 2025, we can hit the ground running. So hopefully that's answered your question there. Basically, there is going to be some changes. So keep an eye on your accountant's social channels, keep an eye out, look out for their newsletter, and if needed, or probably the best solution, just give them a call, talk to them about it, and they'll be able to put all your issues at rest. Tommy on Twitter DM asks the following: do businesses who are not VAT registered need to be MTD compliant as well? And unfortunately, Tommy, yes, that is correct. Now, it does depend on what type of business you have, depend on what type of MTD compliance you need. So if you're a sole trader, April 2024 is your deadline. So you have to move over to Making Tax Digital for MTD ITSA. And then again, speculation, but 2026, 2027, something like that, for limited companies becoming Making Tax Digital compliant as well. So unfortunately, every business out there will be compliant for MTD in a form, one way or another. Basically, HMRC's end goal is to have all taxes under the MTD, the Making Tax Digital compliant umbrella, to make it so that much more real-time information will be flowing through HMRC systems and give them the opportunity to be able to make sure that compliance and everything is all being looked after and correct. So short answer, Tommy, you will be affected. It just depends on what type your business is, depending on when that date is going to be important for you. But if you're a sole trader at the moment, then unfortunately, April 2024 is your next time frame to be in mind. Next question, Vicky on Facebook Messenger asks the following. Me and my business partner are planning on selling our business in 2022. However, we want to find a way to hold on to some real estate that is currently owned by the business. How should we go about this? Great question there, Vicky. Well, first of all, you need to be making sure that you are aware that basically moving a capital item from a business to you personally will incur some capital gains at that point, possibly, depending on what how it falls and the amounts and everything else that's involved. But there is going to be a very good chance that you're going to be struck with capital gains scenarios that are going to come into play. So really, you just need to have some clever planning on how to best use it. There are reliefs available, things like entrepreneurs relief and things like that may be applicable to you. So you just need to really think about it. My best advice for this one is to talk to an accountant about it. Look at your own personal circumstances. Look at exactly how and what you're already utilizing in terms of any reliefs out there. Look in to see if there's any chance you can use your capital allowances or your capital gains allowances in this case on a more regular or you'll be able to utilize it in the most efficient manner. And, with 2022, is there a possibility that you can use multiple tax years to your benefit and have opportunities like that? There's a lot of questions there. And I'd really, really would advise you there, Vicky, to reach out to an accountant, have some sit down with them. These sort of things can have a huge consequence in terms of how much money can be saved. And this is exactly where an accountant really does show their worth and give you an opportunity to, whatever fee they're going to charge you for that work, you'll get back in quite substantially in terms of tax saved if done correctly. So yeah, do highly recommend, Vicky, to just reach out, find an accountant, and you should be absolutely fine with that one. Got just time for a real quick question here. Lauren on Twitter DM asks, I'm a bit confused about who needs to get making taxes to compliant and by when. I heard there was a delay. If this is correct, really, really bottom line here, Lauren. Yes, there's been a delay. You've got one extra year, but it's April 2024. So basically, if you are completing a self-assessment tax return, so if you have business profits, you put into a self-assessment tax return, and normally if you have a tax or a deadline of 31st of January, if that rings a bell to you, if you're always being hammered by your accountant to get stuff in, or if that's when you have to get your deadline in and you're getting letters from HMRC about the 31st of January, then you have April 2024 will be your MTD compliant date, and you'll need to make sure that you have everything in place by then. So bottom line, if you are submitting tax returns at the moment for the 31st of January 2021, either from business profits or from rental, there's a very, very, very strong chance there that you're going to have to be MTD compliant by April 2024. Hopefully that clears it up for you, Lauren. Good luck with it. Rewatch the beginning of this video if not. I've gone through the timeline there, so keep an eye on there, or just keep in touch with Ask the Expert. We'll be making sure that you have all the information you need regarding making tax and stuff. Okay, so the poll results are in as well. So that's the end of those questions. Some cracking questions there. So please do keep bringing them forward. Please do keep coming in and and watching Ask the Expert from 8:30 every single day. Or weekday, should say. If your business, so the question we asked from the poll was, is your business making tax compliant yet? 30% of you said yes, 20% of you said no, and 50% answered working on it. Now, completely honest with you, I think we're all working on it at this point in time. Making tax digital compliant at this point in time is a bit of an unknown. We've still got questions that need to be asked. We still don't 100% know how that's going to affect every single business out there. So I think we are all 100% working on it at this point in time. But again, keep tuned to Ask the Expert. This is where we're going to be making sure that you have all the details you know to keep yourself compliant going forward. So thank you all for tuning in this morning. If you do need to have any more questions regarding for me and myself, then do get in touch with us at hello@boffix.com. That's hello@boffix.com. alternatively, do reach out on the YouTube channel, Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks Chap, and we'll make sure we get all your questions answered there. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow, we've got an absolute brilliant one for you tomorrow, is a multi-brand franchisor and special advisory to franchise industry, Sean Goldsmith. And if it's anything like some of his other content has been done, it's really, really helpful for anyone looking to franchising. And so tune in to hear his advice on making strategic business decisions over the holiday season. And I think that's going to be very important for a lot of us. One thing we don't want to be doing is just making some knee-jerk decisions. So I definitely will be tuning in tomorrow to be finding out exactly what I should and shouldn't be doing over this holiday season. A reminder that if you need any more advice, then please do join the official Intuit SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts just like myself are on hand 24/7. I've really enjoyed answering your question this morning. If I don't see you again, have a cracking Christmas. It's only around the corner, isn't it? So have a great day, and I'm sure I'll see you in a video soon. Bye for now.